Welcome to Spotlight Sessions, where we shine
What's
a light
your
on
story?
incredible impact. What does accessibility mean to you?
What's your mission?
Hello and welcome to another episode of accessiBe's Spotlight Sessions, where we highlight leaders and disability changemakers in the community. I'm your host for today's episode. My name is Sapir and I head up accessiBe's nonprofit partnership program team. I'm really excited to have Mary Jane here today. So welcome, Mary Jane.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Sapir. It's great to be here and talk about disability issues.
Amazing. So why don't we just jump in, and can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I am Executive Director of Family to Family Network, an organization here in the Houston area in Texas, in the U.S. I actually sort of got involved with the disability community because my son was diagnosed with autism at a young age. And that's how I ended up here.
Amazing. So can you tell us a little bit about here? What is the Family to Family organization that you work for?
So Family to Family Network got started about 30 years ago, really to help families navigate the medical system here in Houston. Dr. Brewer started it. He met the former executive director on a flight to a parent-to-parent conference and really loved our former executive director and gave her the nonprofit status. And so back then we were a group of young families that had children with disabilities who were we were getting set to transition into the public school system, and we really wanted inclusive experiences for our children. And so we just really started helping families navigate education, learn the special education process. And now we sort of train families on how to advocate for their children, but also teach their kids to advocate for themselves as well as they become adults.
Amazing. And that's so important, that transition from that school period into adulthood. So from your time with the organization, can you share a memorable experience or something that's had a lasting impact on you?
You know, what's had a lasting impact on me personally was I participated in a program called Partners in Policymaking, and it really taught me as a young parent. I think we sort of lose hope and don't have high expectations for our children. And that program really helped me realize that disability is just another body part that works differently, and that to have high expectations for my children. And I think the second thing that really was a memorable experience for me after I learned all that, I went with a family who had a young son with Down syndrome to a an individualized education program meeting with them. And the family was getting a little frustrated because they really wanted inclusion for their son. And they stepped out of the room just to have a little conversation among themselves. And the principal said to me, "Why is this inclusion so important for him?" And I was sort of taken back. And, I really had to reflect and say, he just wants to have a life just like everybody else. And y'all need to have high expectations for him, and he needs access to education to make that happen. And today he lives and works in our community, and he lives independently, and it was a successful story. And so that I always think about that.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that one. It was really touching. So with that in mind, when you hear the word accessibility, what comes to mind for you?
I think what comes to mind for me is that everyone can work and live and play in our community and have the accommodations that they need. They don't have to ask for them. It's just a natural part of the process. That's what accessibility is to me. So
I love that. Thank you. And what is one thing that you think businesses and brands should do more with regards to access and inclusion?
um, I think they really need to think about universal design when they're just thinking about their business. And then I think they also need to think about that in across all areas. It's not just, oh, we're going to stick a person with a disability in our advertisements. We need to think about how we are hiring practices. Um, are our applications accessible to all disabilities? Are the questions we're asking people, helpful? Just, I think we need to look at that across businesses, making sure that we're being accommodated for people with disabilities. It's not just putting a ramp in. There's a lot of things that are involved.
And we have this conversation a lot. Okay, you've put the ramp in, but then what's
But
next when they enter
exactly.
through the door, So that's a really great point. And with that in mind, what what do you wish people knew about people with disabilities?
That people with disabilities are more alike than us than different. They want the same things that each one of us wants. We want to be happy and healthy and be able to live our lives like we want to live them. They're no different from you and I. So
Absolutely. So if everyone can do their part to make the world more inclusive, what would that one part be?
stop thinking about special stuff. Um, you know, Separate is not equal. Let's think about how we can include people in everyday activities, and then just ask people with disabilities what they want. I think we're afraid to ask, and we need to be able to ask people with disabilities what would work for them, and make that happen.
Yeah, definitely. We won't get very far assuming, but because if we
Yeah,
assume, we'll generally assume wrong. So we need to open that
exactly.
conversation.
Exactly. We need to have that conversation, because when you assume, you make the wrong decisions in your business or with your church life or whatever they're trying to offer. And I think a lot of people making assumptions that we need to do a separate program, a special program. We need to do something separate for people with disabilities, and that's not necessarily what they want. They want to be with everybody else,
Mhm.
doing things. So
Yeah. If I could ask about the education aspects that your organization focuses on, to what extent do they think about reverse integration? Like the integration of students with and without disabilities together in the classroom or in that type of setting.
I think over the years, since my son was included, it's gotten a little bit easier. But right now, at least in Texas, I think it's a lot more lip service than it is helping kids. Um,
Because you need the proper support.
you need the supports to make inclusion happen,
Yeah.
and making sure that you know general education teachers have those supports and the student has that support.
Mhm.
Um, and sometimes I think we think about accommodations as being really hard when sometimes they're not. I mean, I remember in fourth grade, I had figured out what sort of accommodations my son needed because he couldn't really write and he didn't have a lot of language skills. So we did a lot of other things. And once I showed that fourth grade teacher what I was doing to accommodate, she was like, oh, that's all? That's easy. And I think that's to make inclusion happen, you've got to think about what's easy and what can we do and to make that happen. I think people think it's just so hard and they're not thinking outside the box. Sometimes all it takes is asking their peers,
Yeah.
what can you do? How
Mhm.
can we help this person? Often the kids know a lot more. They do.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much, Mary Jane, for being part of the conversation with us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you giving me an opportunity to share, and I look forward to seeing more interviews that you do online. So this is great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And to all of our listeners who are with us till the end, thank you for staying on. You can like and subscribe and follow us on YouTube and also continue the conversation with us on Instagram. You can follow us at accessiBe_community. We look forward to seeing you there. Till next time.